What is up, everyone? This is BigPowner, and I'm about to show you the end game version of the Ice Shot build. This is the all-around build. This is basically the build that I will pretty much be running besides the small upgrades that I'll be looking for. The reason why I've settled on this, I've tested like literally every possible combination. I've leveled, barrage every single type of ballista. I've spent a ridiculous amount of time in path of building. I've tested the damages, like breaking points for damage reduction and health versus different bosses. The itemization of damage versus resistances, all of that stuff. This is the final product. This is not min-max damage. Like, doing that in this league is absolutely retarded because you're just gonna die. This build, the way it is, will basically one-shot everything in the map besides the bosses, and then it has enough damage that you can pretty efficiently deal with all of the bosses, including Sirius. So, let's get into it. We're going to start off with the gear. We'll start at the top and we'll move our way down. So there's two options for the helm. One of them is a new option that's going to be a pain to get. It is going to be better. And then there's an easy option, and I'll go ahead and give you the advantages and disadvantages of these two choices. So we have the easy one. I've covered this before in the previous videos, working the way up to the end game. If you're new to this, you don't have a lot of currency, this is not really the video for you. This is a good video to know what your end game goals are and the direction to head into, but you're probably going to want to check out those other videos for the cheap options to help get you to an end game place. So this is the cheaper option. This is made really simply. This is just a frigid fossil and a single socketed chaos resonator. You can also go for a frigid fossil with the pristine fossil. You can do frigid and pristine, and then you're just basically going to spam it. The main things that we want on this, we need the -9 to cold resistance, and then you also are going to want big life, resistances. You're most likely going to get cold resistance, and that's a good thing. The reason why is because I'm going to tell you, if you've been watching my videos, and I told you guys that pretty much the two best choices for the chests were going to be the perfect form or the Hyri's Ire, basically defense or damage. If you want to be in a place where you're not getting one-shotted by Sirius, and you want to have more survivability, the perfect form Zodiac is absolutely the armor that you are going to have to go for. The difference in the defenses is just, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'll touch on that in a second and give you an example. The extra damage is not worth it. So if you have not bought one of those, I'm going to tell you 100% go for the perfect form Zodiac. The extra damage reduction you get through the Arctic armor is important. The extra dexterity is important. The phase acrobatics frees up 1 extra point, and then on top of that, evasion rating is increased by uncapped cold resistance. I'm just going to go and show you. So we have my evasion rating at 14,462. When I take this off, my evasion rating is 3,942. Obviously, that is a massive difference. Like, a massive difference. And obviously, like, I don't have my helm on, so I would have a little bit more, but you're talking about 10,000 evasion is lost, and it becomes even greater when I have my helm on because it magnifies the so now I'm at 19,000, so it drops it almost 20,000, so it drops me it drops me like 12,000 evasion by taking this off. And like, yes, you get increases on adding stuff, but we can look at the increase that this gives us. So I'm at 3,500. It is giving me 1,700, which is essentially about 100%, 100 and let's call it 100 and a quarter. So 100 and a quarter of this should mean that I should be getting 2,600, 2,700 evasion, plus a quarter of that would be like, let's call it 3,000. Instead, I'm getting 12,000. That's how powerful this armor is. It's displaying that my dodge chance is 60% chance to evade attacks. In actuality, it's close to the cap. You can check in the path of building. I will give my path of building in the description. So super important. We're talking about a massive difference in dodge alone, and on top of that, you have your ice armor, which is 12% damage reduction. On top of that, for 13% less physical damage taken, 12% less fire damage taken, and it chills enemies that attack you. Like, and that's a free bonus. It just takes a slot. So there's a huge reason. Like, there's no better defensive slot than that, and we need the defense this season. The bosses are dangerous, and with this setup, like I said, you can survive a lot of Sirius's attacks. The laser, you will be fine if it hits you once and you're at full HP. I have even survived getting hit by the meteor one time, which, like, I mean, I haven't been hit by the meteor a lot, so I can't say every time I'm gonna survive. And obviously, that's a combination of my defensive skill being up, so that has to be able to proc up, because I'm pretty sure if I didn't have that extra damage reduction, I probably would have died. But the point is it gives you enough HP that you can enough defenses and HP that you can survive those things. And because of our combination with our bow, it's giving a massive damage reduction. Because you can see I'm at 42% estimated physical. When I take this off, it's dropping 20% of my estimated physical damage reduction, and that's before we count in our Arctic armor and our Immortal Call. So it's both giving us 20% damage reduction, and it's also giving us, I don't know, what's the displayed difference on here? 21% chance to evade attacks. That's huge. Like, that's a massive increase. Anyways, the reason why I switched to this is the Shocking Conflux. What Shocking Conflux does, if you're not familiar with it, it makes it so that your other elemental damage can apply shock. This means that whatever my max hits are, when Shocking Conflux is up, it counts the hit as electricity damage, basically. This means that we can get up to a 50% damage increase. The -9 to cold resistance is really strong. It's a really good option. The reason why I moved away from that and spent so much time trying to make this, and I'm going to tell you, trying to craft this is a huge pain in the ass. It's basically a chaos spam item, and you're going to have to settle on some stuff. Like, the intelligence on this is good for me. Obviously, I've got crafted on life, which is not ideal, because I should be able to get over 100 HP on the helm, which that's kind of hurting me a little bit. So this is going to be a big investment. If someone's selling them, they're probably going to be expensive unless people just don't know how good this is. And then I Exalt slammed it and got socketed minions, +1 level of socketed minions, which I threw my golem in it, which doesn't do anything for me except for increase his life, because there's no increased for a level 21 gem. There's no increase on the critical strike chance or the accuracy. The thing is, if you're concerned about the Sirius fight, this is perfectly fine. The reason why is because in the Sirius fight, you're going to want to be close to him to avoid his attacks, because he attacks, you're in a circle, and obviously the closer you are to him, the easier it is to dodge things, and you can also see what he's doing. So on everything besides the last fighting phase, you're pretty much always close to him, so that -9 cold resistance is going to be a good factor. Moving on to the bow. We're still using the Arborix. This was the goal weapon to get. Min-maxing, you're going to want to be divining this and trying to get it as good as possible. Once you've done that, once you have all of your sockets right, then you're going to want to take and corrupt it through the Beastcraft. I put up a video on how to do that. The reason why we want to do that with the Arborix, and the reason why it's really important with the Arborix, is because the Arborix doesn't have any percentage added damage. It has a huge amount of flat physical damage, which means 10% quality is a 10% increase to the overall damage of the weapon, which is huge because, you know, a 10% increase, an actual 10% increase to your total damage is huge for something that's guaranteed through your crafting. But like I said, make sure you divine your weapon to get it really nice. Like I got mine to near perfect on the evasion and the physical damage, and then did it. So this, before counting any of the stuff on the weapon, is 400 P DPS weapon, which is very nice. So we've got the weapon covered, we've got the helm covered. The amulet. See, when I take this off, I can't wear anything. Somewhere you are going to have to pick up you're going to have to pick up strength, intelligence, and the other reason why I moved away from the Doomfang was to make the build so that it would be good against all the content. The thing is we have the, like, this is moving towards, like, understand this is like you want to take your build as basically in the direction of as far as it can go, and this is the most functional version of that. We need more HP added on this build, so HP is one reason why we want to go with a crafted amulet. The other reason why we're moving away from the Gloomfang in the end is not just the HP. It's also because we need to get stats. And the thing is if you can get an amulet that has both HP, crit strike, crit multiplier, and stuff you need. I mean, this could be a place you get your resistances, your chaos resistance, your elemental resistance, overcap your cold resistance, any of that good stuff. It's another place to put a lot of stuff on. The thing is this season they've made rare amulets and some of the unique ones like super powerful because we're able to use the catalysts to beef them up. That's the reason why, you know, this amulet has 57 intelligence and 36 strength, is because, you know, I've max qualityed that with the attribute modifier, which basically takes care of all of my attribute issues. If you're looking for, you know, if you're to ask what are the best rolls I can look for on this, critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier, HP, and then all of this other stats that you want. The thing is we want to be trying to get our critical strike chance and our multiplier as high as possible. The multiplier, if your effective critical strike chance is close to 100, is essentially like an actual increase to your damage. If I add 32% critical strike multiplier and say I don't have 99% critical strike. Essentially, all of that damage is a multiplier to my damage. Critical strike multiplier with a near 100% critical strike chance is effectively an actual increase to your damage. So, therefore, it is the best thing to stack for damage. So, it's kind of like a place to fill in. The reason why I kept Snowforge, I really like Vengeance Cascade. The thing is, Vengeance Cascade does not do much for me against boss fights. And the thing is, with only one chain, I'm still able to, on pretty much any map, even the long, annoying ones, I'm able to full clear in 5 minutes. On the more efficient, small maps, like 2 to 3 minute clears with one chain, running the build like this with the Snowforge. The Snowforge gives us a lot of things that we really need. It gives us a small increase to our damage, but it gives us 30% critical strike chance, which what are we trying to do? We're trying to max out our critical strike chance, and this ties into our choice of rings. We have to get our critical strike chance and multiplier as high as possible. One of the choices that you can do that with would be to do an Assassin's Mark ring. I've chosen to go with negative cold resistance because they buff the boss's cold resistance up, and the thing with cold resistance debuffs and cold penetration is it works on a multiplier. If a boss only has 45% cold resistance and you debuff him, 50%, he's now in the negative. He's now taking 5% more damage. Well, the way this build is set up, pre-adding a penetration gem, which I am now using pretty much all the time, he's already in the negative resistances. When you add in the cold penetration, that's more damage that he's taking because it's basically like when you first get the debuffs from Kitava and you're like 50% negative in the resistance, everything like really hurts. It does the same thing to the boss. So we have some cold penetration in our trees, and then we have a debuff here, which is level 8, I think is 30, like low 30% minus to cold resistances. I'm not sure the exact number, but it's significant. It's like essentially close to a leveled up cold penetration gem, which also makes it so that if you're having trouble mapping and you want to, you can carry your chain. I don't have my chain on me. I don't even use it, honestly. You can carry your chain. I have one leveled up, but I don't even swap it out because one chain, it kills everything with the way the build's set up. Like I don't feel need for it at all, even on Legion encounters on tier 16 corrupted 140% maps. Like it's not even an issue. So, moving on from that, basically stat cow, prioritize HP, crit chance, crit multi. It may be hard to find one that's reasonably priced with all three of those things. So, use Path of Building, see what your effective crit chance is with all of your stuff on. If your crit chance is really low, probably prioritize crit chance. If it's high, go for the crit multiplier. Like, stacking crit multiplier is going to significantly increase your damage. Okay, so our Quiver. I gave you the cheap option on the Asphyxia. You're going to want to move to a Spike Point Quiver. Once again, it's because we need more crit chance, more crit multiplier, more HP. It's also another place to pick up resistances. The nice thing, the reason why I'm going to suggest the Spike Point is because it has the implicit of up to 30% global, which you should Blessed Orb that every time to 30% because Blessed Orbs are like one of the cheapest currencies in the game. So on the actual stats, like this one could be better, but it's good enough that I'm not ready yet to annul orbit because I've got basically like a 33% chance of of removing a bad stat, and then adding that stat would make this like a god tier Quiver. But I don't have anything to replace it, so I'm not going to do that yet, because I would feel really bad if I ended up hitting like the HP or the crit multiplier or the elemental damage. Like I would, it would be basically turn it into like a 4 or 5 Exalt Quiver into worthless. So when I get another one that's comparable, I'll do that. The things we want to look for on this, the reason to go for a Shaper is mainly for you can get additional arrow. You can get the maim. I mean, maim's nice. It's not like a priority. I mean, it's something useful. But the things you want on this, you don't have to do Shaper. Once again, you want critical chance, critical multiplier. On this, I'd say go for the multiplier like I've done. Unless, like I said, your critical strike chance is really low, then you probably want to get um, a, a, a a suffix for more critical strike chance. You could prioritize once again critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier, and HP. If you need resistances, this is another place to pick it up. This is a good place to pick up chaos resistance. Like if I wind up removing the 21% fire resistance, I will wind up adding a dual mod chaos and fire resistance, because then I would still have I'd still have my 75. That would honestly be like ideal for me to wind up removing, because my chaos resistance with Flasks is up 60%. So if I had another 15, I'd be at 75, which that would be that would be like that would be awesome. um, Maybe I'll make a video, ruin it or make it god tier. I do that daily though, so maybe I should just save a bunch of stuff and be like, watch me ruin all these really good items. Like it's dangerous for me to have uh annulment orbs. I ruined so much gear, but that's how you wind up getting really crazy good stuff. So we still have the Taming Prismatic Ring. This is just too hard to get away from. It's just so good. Like once you have qualityed up the elemental damage, I've gone over this before. You have 36% elemental damage, 36% elemental damage with attack skills, 12% chance to freeze, shock, and ignite. You can have up to 40% to all elemental resistances, and then on top of that, you get 24% increased damage with hits and ailments per freeze, shock, and ignite on enemies. Which, what is it that we do? We have shocking conflicts giving us shock. We're going to freeze, and we're going to be freezing and chilling basically on every single shot every single time. We also have a ton of chance to freeze, shock, and ignite through our tree. We've got it in a few places. We've got 10% down here. There's something else that, but I'm not going to spend time looking for it on. I'm not going to spend time looking for it. There's a lot to cover. Moving on. 3 slots that I'm going to cover real easily. You need all rares. Your goal is to do what I'm doing, is to add stats that you need, but also to try to tie in chaos resistance. Like I said, this is a build to do everything extremely well. In order to do that, you are going to have to get some chaos resistance. So one of the best ways to do that is obviously to have chaos resistance on it, but then also to do these dual mods. The reason why is because if there's one implicit open, I can add both 15% of, cold, fire, electricity, lightning with the chaos resistance, and it's cheap to spam to get it perfect. That's why I have it, perfect on those 2 items. I wasn't able to get on these. These are going to have to get replaced. This is probably my worst piece of gear, because I've got fire damage to attacks. That does absolutely nothing for me. I've got 19 dexterity. That's a terrible stat. I've got crafted on HP. Like, those are all not that good. The flat physical tier 1, that's good. But use a gripped glove base. You want to get as high HP on this this and this, and then you need your resistances and try to tie in chaos resistance. If you need you know, strength or intelligence and you didn't get it on your amulet, get it on one of these. Like, the thing that I'm gonna tell you is go for the hardest to get things first, and then use other items as filler places. So this is gonna be your hardest item to get, and you're not gonna have much wiggle room on this because the curse enemies with frostbite on hit is hard to get. You might be able to buy it cheaply because I don't even think that I don't think this is popular at all. Let me see what it says. This is a really nice one, and oh, it's not even showing it on the database. But its estimate, yeah, it's saying it's 100 to 150 chaos, which that is not 100 to 150 chaos ring. But what that means is that it's not popular, which means you might get lucky and you might, you know, you might pick one up cheap. Most likely, though, you are going to have to spam this with fossils is going to be the best way. The thing is, there's several ways that you can do this. You can do the cheap pray that I get something good method, which is basically just to use a frigid fossil and single socket resonators and just keep hitting it. Another way you can go, if you really want HP on it, is you can go pristine, but the thing is that's going to most likely take up, well, there's a high probability it's going to take up one of your chances to wind up landing the the curse with frostbite. So that there's a trade-off there. If you want a really nice one, you can go with sanctified fossils too, which are going to make it so when you do hit that good roll, it's going to, you know, have better stats. But understand that that's going to make it a very expensive roll, and you know, it's increasing the likelihood that you get the cold stats, but there's a lot of cold stats to roll. Luckily, there's some nice ones on here. We've got the dual mod freeze and added cold damage against frozen enemies. You have the freezing mod, and then obviously the frostbite. So you're gonna get a lot of damage from this when you hit a nice one, and that debuff is gonna be huge. Like, if you want to see what the debuff does, like actually does, just when you do the configure, give them a negative 34 cold resistance and see what that does to the damage that they take. It's significant. So I think we've covered all of the gear. These are basically fill points. You are going to have 2 jewel slots. We'll go ahead and go into jewels now. And then I'll cover flasks real quick. So jewels, we're going to wind up picking up we're going to have 2 slots for jewels. And these are going to be basically what you use to fill in stuff that you need. Like, if I'm missing, like, I get my gear perfectly right and I'm missing like 20, 30 of one of my resistances, I can prioritize that resistance. Say I'm missing like 30% lightning resistance, I can get 15% lightning resistance as a top stat on a belt jewel and on a jewel here, and then I can get that fixed. Eventually, you know, I'm gonna want to get other good stats, like something like this. This is like an example of a really nice one. Critical strike multiplier for cold skills, dual stat, which the 11% cold resistance overcaps my resistance more, which because of the zodiac is giving me more evasion, and then critical strike chance with elemental skills. It's an elemental skill, so that would be a really good one. This is, you know, you want the big flat life. This could be better. I mean, I've got basically a dump stat with the lightning damage, so I've got room for improvement there. This I'm probably done with. Let's go ahead and look at the pathing. The main thing that I'm going to talk about, though, is the jewels. Like I said, this is the end game, your end game goals. This is a big end game goal. I wouldn't say it's that big. I mean, a couple exalts, I think they are now. They're getting easier as the season goes on. There's more of them. They're easier to get. The thing is when you get this, um, it's probably not going to be some amazing brutal restraint where you're going to be like, oh, I got attack speed and 20% evasion and 25% critical strike chance on every single one of my rolls. Maybe if 1,000 people do this, maybe one of those people is going to have that scenario. The thing is most people are going to throw it in the socket and see what it has. And if they see in the most popular socket that it has all that stuff, they're probably going to be like, huh, yeah, that's not 2 exalts, that's a mirror. Like, or I'm just going to keep it, because I wouldn't sell something like that, because it would be really hard. You have to go to, like, forums and show what it has, and then you have to find someone that's looking for it. Realistically, the way that you're going to wind up getting a nice one is you're going to take it, you're going to socket it in, and then you're going to be like, oh, well, it's got, yeah, minions have, obviously one that's not filled in, minions have 15% increased movement speed. That, like, I don't want to be buffing up my ice golem. Like, like, that's not a good stat. So if I've got a bunch of stuff like that, I want to change it. All you have to do to change it is hit it with a divine orb. The divine orb will change only the number. It says denoted service of 5114 Dakahara. When you hit it with a divine orb, it changes that number and it mixes around all of the stuff that it does to these, which this jewel is always going to give you 2 dexterity, but then these things, like you can see in the below, like Heartseeker normally only gives you, it normally just gives you the 30% crit multiplier. Now it's giving me 5% attack and cast speed on top of that. And we hit a lot of spots with it. So, and when you hit level 96, this might be an option, a direction you want to go. If you're wanting more damage, this would be a good option. The thing is like I said, we're making this is the do everything well build. So we've moved away from kind of crutching ourselves with a lot of damage, and we've taken the best damage spots, but we've really picked up a lot of defensive stats and HP. So one of the changes is we've come over here. The other choice that you have, if you want even more HP, if you're still really struggling, you can take and still get this stuff. You could, if you get to a higher level, this would be easier. You could drop some damage nodes. Like, this would hurt, but if I dropped those 4, and I have everything else done, and I gain 4 more levels, or 3 more levels, so 95, you would be able to make it to here, which would give you a total of 19% more, 19% more life. So that would plus 20 max HP. This would be a big increase. You'd have to spend a lot of points to get up there. And you get this, which is evasion and 10% to all elemental resistance. That might be a direction you want to go, but this down here is just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's shorter, and what am I getting? I'm getting 8 plus 5 is 13, plus 5 is 18. So for 6 points, I'm getting 18, and what would this give me? This would give me 19, and it would cost me a whole extra point for 1% more. I guess I would also be getting this, but I would also be losing this, which that's a lot of damage. So this is pretty important. I wouldn't drop this for this. But if you're really hurting for HP, you can come up here. This is a viable route to go. The other jewel we already covered, the reason why we do it. We've got the Lionized Fall. We do that so that we can buff up our critical strike chance and critical strike multiplier. This is pretty important if you want to have a really high critical strike chance, critical strike multiplier. I'm like 90. I've moved my gear around a little bit, but I believe my effective critical strike chance with Flasks up and in combat is like 95 or 96%, which I have a massive critical strike multiplier. I actually think it's I think it's probably closer to 97, 98. The reason why is because I have critical strike chance from my brutal restraint, and the thing is Path of Building doesn't count this. It doesn't count the brutal restraint, and it doesn't count the Lionized Fall, like the bonuses that you get from it. Path of Building doesn't work that way. So it might say that I have like 80, 90%, but I've got over 100% increased critical strike chance, and like I've got a lot of extra. Let's put it that way. So the actual calculation for that has to be done manually. But looking in here, it's obviously this isn't calculating everything right because it says I've got. It doesn't even account for your lucky strike chance. So this is not a very good portrayal. This is pretty much going to stay the same. I did wind up coming to here and taking this just for another 5% HP. Also, you get some regeneration. We are using Blood Rage. I do use Blood Rage quite a bit now, just because I mean it's 18% attack speed and 1.2% life leech. It's just a really big one. The Watcher's Eye is another big jewel. The thing is with this one, you have 3 good options as a main stat. Obviously, you can go for multiple, but I mean that's if you have that kind of currency where you want to spend 30, 40 exalts on a Watcher's Eye, then go for it. That will obviously be better. But the 3 things you want, as far as hatred, in the order that they're the strongest, is not the order that they are the strongest the way this build is set up. The strongest one in general and the most expensive is the percentage increased critical chance. I think it goes up to 1.9%. That is the most expensive stat. It is not the best one for this build. And the reason why is because if I'm already at, 95 to 100% critical strike chance, what does adding a 2% multiplier to that do for me? It does nothing. I have such a small margin to gain. My effective crit is probably like 98. So when you have all this stuff, you should be around 98. So if I add a 2% increase to that chance, normally, like say I'm at like 50% critical strike chance, and I add that 2%, then it gets multiplied, and I probably gain like 10, 12% chance to critical. That's significant. If I'm already at 98% or not even 95%, adding that small percent chance, because the gap's getting smaller and smaller, it's a diminishing return, I'm not really gaining much there. And what you have to think is the alternative option of adding damage. That damage gets multiplied by that 95% critical strike chance with my like 400 or 500% critical damage multiplier. That's my multiplier. 450% critical strike multiplier. And I believe on top of that I have cold resistance multiplier. I don't know. And I've got 37% cold resistance penetration. Cold resistant penetration with weapons is another 13%. So I have 50% cold penetration. On top of that, I have a debuff for 34%. So, like, that makes it hurt. That's the other best option, which I would say is probably going to give you a better effective damage, which is cold penetration for hatred. Added cold damage is going to be the cheapest choice, and because we have so much cold penetration and so much debuff, I am going to say it's probably the best choice to go for. Granted, like I said, if you're going to get 2 of them, I'd go cold penetration and cold damage. Obviously, if you're going to get all 3, I mean, like, have fun finding one, and when you do, tell me how many mirrors it cost. I bought one of a Watcher's Eye like that last season. I don't think I'll do that this season. I mean, it's really nice, but in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's worth it. So we've got our jewels covered. Everything else is pretty much going to be linked. Well, everything will be linked in the path of building. Um, this is pretty much how it is. Like I said, if you get past the level that I'm at and you want to know where to go, it's really what you need. Realistically, I would say like 99% of the community is not going to go past like level 95, 96. So let's say like 4 more points that you're going to spend. You have a few options. If you want more penetration, you can come back down here and take this. This is more damage and penetration. Like I said, you can remove something, or probably one of the best options would be to fill in these 4 places. The reason why is because this stat alone, like these 2 stats right here, will give you a lot of damage increase just when like you're adding the single point. And then this one obviously is going to give us another big boost, and then it's also another place that we're going to get a bonus from our brutal restraint. So unless you're going to respec and kind of go up here to try and get more HP, um, this is probably going to be your most beneficial path, and that's probably what I will be doing. It's possible that I might do something different, but I mean, at that point, the build already works how it is. I'm honestly not even stressed about leveling. There's a few pieces of gear that I want to change up, um, but overall, like this piece of gear needs to be upgraded really badly. This could get upgraded more. This could get better. Like these 3, basically, I want to get a better quiver, or I want to pray that I hit the annulment orb and make that quiver better. That's what I'd really like. But other than that, I think that you guys have the end game build. This is what I've been making the videos with. So you've seen it kill bosses, you've seen it crush Blight, you've seen it crush everything. And like right now, this is like the best that it has been in any of those videos. So if you like the performance of it, this is the direction that you want to go. This is the stuff that you want to shoot for. These are the stats that you want to look for. These are the gem setups that you want to go for. I'm going to go over these real quick, but once again, they'll be in the path of building. Your secondary damage. Scourge Arrow with a Ballista Totem. This might sound weird, and every person I've told to do this, they're like, oh, it doesn't work, or, why don't you use this or that? I'm telling you, I have used everything. I have crunched the numbers on everything. This is the best functionally, and it is the best mathematically. There is not a better comparable skill. The reason why it works so well, there's so many reasons that it works really well with the Ice Shot. First of all, Scourge Arrow does a lot of damage. It has a big multiplier, but it is a terrible mapping skill. If you are using Scourge Arrow to just like clear maps and do everything, your mapping must be absolutely atrocious. Like having to wind up an attack to do your damage, like there's no place for that except on a totem. It works amazing on a totem. The reason why is because the only time that we're going to be dropping those totems is when something is really tanky and we need big damage, which means it's going to be alive long enough for the ballista totems to charge up the attack and shoot it. The other thing is what does the Ice Shot do? It chills and freezes, which, what's the main issue with the Scourge Arrow? It's slow. It shoots out, and what does the most damage is the secondary projectiles. So obviously, if you throw them around and you're kiting around a thing and you're freezing it and chilling it, like, those secondary projectiles are going to hit, which means they're going to actually be doing their damage. So it works very well. If you don't believe me, then you probably shouldn't be watching my videos. You should go find someone else that's going to tell you, I don't know. But at least try it. I guarantee you'll like it. The thing is Ice Shot is going to clear everything. You should never be using the Scourge Arrow except on a boss or like I'll drop them sometimes before like I open a chest, but honestly, I mean, even then it's kind of like I drop the chest and I shoot a couple arrows and everything's dead anyways. I don't know if it really even does it, but every once in a while, you get something nasty spawns out of it, and it's nice to just have them down. You can throw them down so quick, why not? Um, for the helm, well, I mean, you can put these anywhere you want as long as it works. For auras, I am using Hatred, Arctic Armor because it's free because of my Zodiac, Herald of Ice, which actually I need to divine this, I think. It's gonna be a pain. Um, anyways, summon Ice Golem and Herald of Ice. So there's one thing that you can add that is not on my build. The reason why I don't do it is because I'm lazy. Right here, you will see that I have a portal. This would give you one extra slot. You can do Vol Haste, which you don't use the actual skill because it would reserve 50% mana, and you can't do that. You would just use it for the Vol part, which would give you a massive boost of damage, like when you're killing bosses. I could do this, but honestly, I'm super lazy, and I hate to click into my inventory, switch out my jewel, cast it. Like, I just find that annoying. And honestly, the build has so much damage, I don't want to deal with that. But I mean, it might be worth it, like on like Sirius fight or something like that. Which the portal jewel can go in anything. So when you don't need it, you can take out the Vol Haste. But the Vol Haste might be worthwhile to have for when you want to use it. You can carry it in your secondary bow. I've talked about this before. You should be leveling stuff. I mean, I'm leveling expensive jewels that are gonna be expensive. Empower, Enlighten, Enhance. Obviously, later I'll be able to use them. Um, like, I'll make one for myself if I get super lucky and hit multiple, then I'll sell it. They're like, 4 to 10 exalts. Like, why wouldn't I be leveling that? It's a free place to level stuff. But the first things that I'll level are things that I need level 21 gems of. Like, all of my level 21 gems, like my Ice Shot and my added cold damage, like, those are level 21s because I leveled multiple in my side bow and, keep on spamming them. I mean, it's free experience to give yourself a chance to get a damage boost. So make sure that you're doing that. And then if you wind up with multiple of them, you sell the extra, and there's currency you wouldn't have had, and the only thing you had to invest was you know um, a slot on a secondary bow, which you don't need a 6 link. You can use whatever your replacement bow is, or you can use any 6 socket weapon. I think that... Oh, flasks. Okay. So, movement speed, I always put cannot be frozen, removes chill on those. The reason why is because, you're running around, obviously, like, you get frozen, you're going to try to move faster. It makes sense. I always put removes bleed on my health flask, because when you take a bleed, what do you normally do? Oh shit, my health's going down, I'm gonna heal. So that makes sense. That's how I do that. I'm still using the Onslaught flask. This is going to either be replaced by a Dying Sun or a I mean, there's like a few things we could do on that. I mean, like, you could go with the Divine, adds the critical chance. You can actually farm those, or farm for those. I've gotten the map a few times. I haven't gotten it, but I'll probably wind up with one. And honestly, I'll probably use that over a Dying Sun, because I don't really need the extra projectiles. But either one's really good. I think they sell for like 10 exalts, 10 to 20 exalts, I think they're still at, so they're kind of expensive. So if you really need the currency, I wouldn't say it's worth keeping for that, to use it for that much, and they will get cheaper as the season goes on, because the what's it called, the Nexus, I'm forgetting the name of the map, but it's basically the final synthesis fight map. It's like 6-stage fight. It gives a chance to drop that flask. if you get that right away, because there is going to be a lot of chances to get those, they're probably going to go down in price. So if you really need the currency, I would sell it, get the 10x salts, upgrade your gear, get your build really strong, and then if you decide later on you want that flask, farm another one, or or buy one when you have the extra currency. Always, 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 I'm going to leave it on this note. Upgrade your worst thing first. Like, it's really important to make big purchases that you know you're going to keep. Like the Arborix. I told you from the beginning, this is your end game bow. To get a better bow than this, like when you have it in like the state that I have, like I've looked at the mods and it would be so hard to roll a weapon better than this. You're talking about like um, a mere tier weapon to outperform the Arborix. So like unless you're unless you're gonna get to the point where you want to spend a mirror or more on a weapon, like this is the last weapon you're gonna want. So obviously, big purchases like that, or like your chest, I know that I'm gonna be keeping this and using this. Like that's why I would go for that. But once you get to the point where you have like a bunch of stuff, upgrade your worst piece of gear first. Like I can look at this right now. This is my worst piece of gear. This will be the next thing that I replace. Then after I do that, it's like, belt or boots? Well, boots only have 60 life. They can have 106. They're essentially like half the HP. They've got tier 4 cold resistance, tier 2 chaos resistance. There's a lot of room for upgrade. Everything on there. I don't want the increased rarity. Like those are bad also. So I'm gonna upgrade that next. That's how you advance your build and get the stronger. Get the most upgrade for the price, and if you like the build and you keep doing that, eventually you're gonna wind up in super good gear. The thing is the only time you want to be holding on to currency or like a lot of currency is if you're saving up to do something. Like I need this 20 exalt item. That's my next upgrade. Like if you don't have a goal and you have upgrades that you need, buy the upgrades. The thing is currency diminishes in value as the season moves on because more of it enters in. Items become more expensive as the season goes on. It's like, you know, um, even an exalted orb, it's like 50 chaos the first day. By the third day they're 80 or 90. In a month they're going to be 200, and then they'll come back down. They'll level out around like 150 to 170. And that's just simply because people are spamming them a lot. Towards the end of the season, people are just burning currency, and they'd rather have a shit ton of chaos to chaos spam an item 5,000 times. I mean, I do it, so I understand it. I burn crazy amounts of currency when I start getting bored. um, Diamond Flask. If you don't have this mod, buy one. They're like 20, 30 chaos. Get a really nice one. The important thing is increase critical strike chance during Flask effect. It's just such a huge increase. Obviously, we have our ad series. Get that as good as you can. Both the gain physical damage, is extra chaos damage during effect, and the elemental, they both add damage to you. So try to get really good roll on that. I actually am off 2% on the physical. I need to get a perfect one. Life Flask. I already covered that. Yeah, that's everything. So Onslaught is, do what you want with it. And there's some other stuff. If your resistances are hurting really badly, you could like throw in a Wise Oak or. I mean, you really don't want to be relying on your flasks for resistances this league, though. Outside of mapping, like boss fights, because like if you're planning to try to do the serious fight, you need good base resistances because like in order to beat Sirius, you're gonna have to have flasks towards the end of the fight, and unless you're playing like something that's generating flasks, like you have to be very scarce. You can't rely on having flasks up all the time in a boss fight because the fight lasts longer than the flasks will last. Like you got to use them very very selectively, like oh shit moments. Anyways, thanks for watching. I hope this helps you guys. I hope you're enjoying the build. Peace out.